Today, on Independent Wrestling Profiles, we're talking with referee Ken Kenzington. When did the professional wrestling industry first get exposed to you?
It got exposed to me when I was about 3 years old. I wouldn't stop running around, wouldn't shut up, anything else. So my dad sat me in front of the TV, and wrestling just happened to be on CHCH. It was around, I think it was at the time, it was on Saturdays at 12 o'clock. That's how it kind of got started. And I don't think I ever stopped watching it ever since. So I've driven my family nuts, although it was funny they did it for me not to drive them nuts doing other stuff. I then drove them nuts with wrestling ever since.
3 is a young age, although this, I'm assuming because it was Saturday afternoon, would have been before the Attitude Era and maybe not as faux pas for a 3-year-old. But do you maybe remember what about it like immediately got your attention? What made you want to keep watching and keep tuning in?
It was exactly how it's been sometimes described. It's like watching live action superheroes come to life pretty much. The gimmicks, the characters, the good guy, the bad guy, the storytelling, everything in between. Thinking that's what got me hooked because I don't really remember. I just always know that I used to just watch it growing up. I'm a bit older than a lot of the guys that are there. So I still remember watching the NWA and the early days of WCW and that on Saturday night. And so those are like my earliest memories growing up in through the 80s.
Who were some of your favorite performers, whether that was when you first started watching or even just as you progressed through your fandom?
My fondest memory of one of the first matches I saw, I believe when I was like 6, 7 years old. I remember seeing the British Bulldogs against the Hart Foundation at a live house show that took place at Cops Coliseum. And I was very intrigued, obviously, with the British Bulldog because they brought the Bulldog out and, kids are suckers for dogs sometimes. But Bret Hart, I thought he was always a standout for me from the very beginning. I was like, this dude's wearing pink. Like, what's going on here, right? He had like the long hair. He didn't look like some of the other guys. I guess he had a little bit more character and pizzazz to his gear as opposed to others, right? A lot of guys came out with like muscles and everything else, but he didn't have that. He had a different sort of look with his gear that he came out to. And Jimmy Anvil Neidhart, I thought was just cool because, he had the long goatee. And I was like, this guy's crazy, right? So his laugh was always killing me because I have kind of the same laugh as him.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I still remember that era too. It was some would stand out to you just because they were wrestlers and not some other profession, right? This is a period of time where maybe you get a dump truck driver or a dentist or things like that. So when you get a wrestler, they're cool because they're just a wrestler.
Yeah.
Growing up and going through like your fandom, did you always maintain that interest in the profession or did it fade in and out or anything like that?
It never stopped. I didn't care what my friends or anyone had said, even through as getting through those ages like 10 and 11, like, oh, you're a loser because you watch wrestling. But it was, it was before the Attitude Era caught, and then you realize everyone was watching it. No, I went through a lot with it, but I never shied away from ever watching it so much. Maybe it's just because, like, in town, we'd see a lot of the guys when they come in for the shows. One of my earliest memories of some of the first wrestlers that I met was Mean Gene Okerlund and Bobby the Brain Heenan and Hillbilly Jim. Seeing them, Hillbilly Jim, holy cow. It was like, I still remember just looking up and still looking up. And, that kind of really stood out because you just saw that they were like, you get to meet them and they're like, actually like, they're people as well, right? So kind of gives you a bit of a different approach when you get to see them. And it just made me want to watch it more and more. And over time, going to the first Royal Rumble that was at Cobb's Coliseum in '88. I still remember going there with my dad who took me, and just seeing Hacksaw Jim Duggan win that was like big. So flash forward, I remember got to work with Hacksaw many years later, and I told him about it. I said, you were like one of the first guys, one of the earliest shows I remember, and you winning the Rumble. And he was a cool dude about it. And then he told me some of his road stories, and I was like, well, probably better knowing that now than earlier. So good guy though, really sweet dude. So
That's an amazing full circle moment.
yeah,
When did you kind of start to feel this itch that the professional wrestling industry was something that you wanted to be a part of, not just a fandom, but hey, I want to be involved in this in some capacity?
That's the part of the roller coaster. 15, 16 years old, wanted to get into it. The Attitude Era was going. Saw Jeff Hardy, you knew how young he kind of was, and you're just like, oh man, there's an opportunity, and I thought maybe I'll see what some of the local gyms have. Saved up money, working, doing whatever. Went there, and being 4'11", 100 and not even 100, it's like 90 pounds, soaking wet, walking in, and it was a different time back then. The acceptance level is nothing compared to what it was now. Very old school mentality, very protected. I found in a short period of time that no, nice in its own way, I was not going to be accepted. Didn't necessarily drive me away from wanting to get in, but definitely for that time, it was like, all right, maybe by some luck, maybe I'll grow, maybe I'll gain weight. Who knows? Try again, maybe when I'm older. Didn't happen necessarily on getting any taller, and definitely on the weight. So floated in and out, made some friends, who happened to be some of the local indie talent that were running around between 97 and 2009 or so. So I befriended with a couple guys. They would bring me around. I would just help set up the rings, get to know people that way. So there was a different aspect to it. Didn't necessarily get into it to referee per se, but many years later, I guess there was an opportunity, and I mean, people told me, "Hey, you should be doing this. It's now or never." Should have been doing it a long time ago. I didn't think of the other. Maybe I didn't think of the other avenues I could have taken. Maybe when I was younger with the with refereeing, because aspirations. You want to be a wrestler. It wasn't until years later you realize there's more to it to a show than just wrestlers alone. Yes, they put on the show, but there's a lot more behind the product that helps make a show work, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember someone told me, "Hey, there's more than one way to get to the main event." I'm like, "Wow, you got a point," and they weren't wrong. So yeah, it was a very big roller coaster ride, just hanging around with people off and on, traveling with some of the guys, and then yeah, just going to the shows and just help set up the ring. Like, hey, go help set up the ring. Just learn something, do whatever, right? Got to be a lot of people along the way that way. So many years later, there was some opportunity that presented itself for a referee to be kind of available. I had a lot of influence behind people saying, you need to be doing this. You need to get into this. You need to do this. No, you've been doing everything else the right way, going, helping out. Why wouldn't you at this point? What do you got to lose? And I thought, sure. So 2018 into 19 kind of floated around, with some rumbles. And then in September of 2019 was when I actually like ref my first show.
Okay.
And yeah, it was through HWE and HPW, and that they had their little groups going on there. So through RIP, I was training at RIP's gym here in Hamilton, and yeah, pretty much first day of training. Hey Ken, what are you doing tonight? And thrown right into the lion's den with that one. So
I was going to ask because, you get the encouragement to do it. You say there's the opportunity, but
yeah,
what does the actual path to becoming a referee look like? What sort of training, what sort of preparation or requirements? Or was it just like a throw you to the wolves, go referee the match?
when my friends when I had some people like with rumbles and stuff like that, it was also at Rip's gym, and like when he was putting on one of his HPW shows, and same with HWE when they had a showcase thing. I just got kind of thrown into like, here, ref a rumble, see what you say, and watch what some of the other guys do. And then I was just looking at how other guys were working. I realized, yeah, I'm going to take this pass. So when I did start training, I knew you should train. Not you don't have to train as hard if you know that you're like the wrestling aspirations weren't there, but you needed the basics and everything else. Like that was, I still find that's vitally important. You should be able to know how to do some of the stuff that the guys absolutely do know how to do. Training is vital as well to knowing, like, you get used to guys how they work, or you kind of get a feel for how a match flows, where you need to stand, where when you have a hard cam. It was a lot of, there's a lot of little things that I guess some people don't realize that you do, and you can see it when there's when there is like some new people and you're just looking and you're like you remember when you were there, you're like, oh man, like the advice that you need to that you know that like the basics need to be taught at the level from training, because some people don't know, like, yeah, you got to watch your spots, you got to know how spots work, positioning, timing, everything else. There's so many vital roles that I like to use that word vital role because it is typically a vital role in itself, but timings of matches as well, because shows are sometimes set on a specific time. If you're unaware of how to keep track of time or keep guys on track with their times and you run over, it's time lost on other matches, or who knows what else. Like, some promoters, they're very time restrictive based on the venue that they're at, right? So training was very crucial at this point, because I know I can do some stuff like some of the other guys. I knew I was athletic enough, which also helps, because being a ref as well, you do need to keep up and stay in shape like the other guys. You should know how to take certain bumps, because ref bumps do happen,
Oh yeah.
and they will ask you. And getting out of the way is also a very key thing, because you can get in the way sometimes, and we get caught. I get it, but it happens to everybody. But guys who just, I believe there's a lot of cardio behind it, and knowing where guys are coming and where they're going. If you can time that out and you can make it look smooth, like a smooth transition, just from our standpoint, like I can be in one spot, I know the whip reverse coming this way, and I can just fade off walking or just moving quick, or change directions happen. And I've seen a lot of refs just get caught, get squashed. I firmly believe keeping up, like either going to the gym or the training, or I tell many refs, do you do anything outside of wrestling that keeps you in shape? Do you jog? I like to think dodgeball is a good one. Also, the fear of God of, like, when I was in school, just running away from the big guys that would just be coming, playing football. So, I mean, I found ways of using my background into when I'm in the ring. So, like, I used to do like gymnastics. I've done so many different sports, and you're able to utilize all that. And even for my age at 40, I can still do things that a lot of 40-year-olds can't do. I look at my friends and they're half broken, and they look at me, they're like, "You're nuts." And I'm like, you know what? Just stay in shape. That's what you got to do. I constantly got to stay in shape and just always keep doing that, because slowing down, I don't think I have room to slow down. I don't think my ADH awesome will ever let me slow down. So I always have to be doing something. And I find that that's kind of key. So I tell other refs when they're there, I'm like, find something, and not, if you want to do wrestling, that's great. But you need to find something to keep yourself into shape as well, whether that's the gym, jogging, any kind of workout, because you need to stay fit for this. They are the athletes, but at the same time, we still have to stay semi-athletic as well, because we got to move, or we have spots or places we need to be. We need to get there quick, get there fast, not be seen. And that's a key role with the ref, is not being seen, but at the same time playing your part.
Not as many people really realize how important the referee is and just what they need to do with keeping track of time and keeping track of positioning. And sometimes it is actually underappreciated how important you are and how good of a ref can be if you don't see them in the match. But I do have to ask, you are still a fan. Has there ever been any moments where you're refereeing a match and you almost catch yourself like, oh, I have a job to do. I can't just be enjoying this match right now?
There's been one or two slight moments, but really I am paying attention to the match, because I'm kind of fanboying in my head on some of them. I think it's kind of like nerves. It just kind of washes away. It's in the back of my mind, and it's like, oh man, I'm more nervous of like, don't screw up, don't screw up, don't screw up. Come on, you got this, right? And it happened earlier on when I first started that this was going on. I've learned, I believe, because I've watched so many refs before I got into it, which is why I want to know how serious I was, because it is a serious thing to take into consideration, not just like, oh man, this is great. Because yeah, you get the best seat in the house, but ultimately it's also part of a show that you're putting on and everyone's watching you. And I've seen a lot of refs get caught just standing there, and I can see in their head, I'm like, you're watching the match now. That's a pin. you know, I don't think there's been moments where I've kind of caught myself being that bad, but I do know there's been moments in my head where I'm like, oh man, here we go. It was just like, for example, there was one with Santino Morella, and I was going to take the Cobra. And at that moment, it was like right before the Cobra, I'm like, oh crap, one step forward, and then bang, and then, inside, I'm getting hit, and my buddy who was watching me, he knew on the inside I was like dying, like he knew I was loving it. So I was hoping the camera didn't catch because I almost popped myself as soon as I got hit. I'm like, great, as I'm going down, and I do the over exaggerative roll to the outside of the ring. It's moments like that. I think that's probably the one of the fanboy moments on the inside, or because usually I lose it when like inside. I get it when the entrances happen.
Okay.
That I like to think that that's the time if you're gonna do it because the cameras are not on you; they're following the guy. He's walking to the ring, and you're just like, man, this is wild. What would like 15-year-old you or 12-year-old you or 8-year-old you say right now? And that I use that time to be like, this is like the surreal moment here, and but it's kind of funny because once the bell rings, it's like it snaps off, right? And then I don't know, it's a different mentality.
So take me through some of your favorite matches, some of the highlights of your career, whether they be for a milestone purpose or just the performers that were involved, or what are just some of the favorite matches that stand out when you reflect back on your career?
It's funny because there's been a lot, and I've been very fortunate that through a short period of time when I was starting out, from what I've gathered, I'm terrible with my own self confidence. It's like, I don't know, I'm my own worst critic. I don't, people tell me like X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, I don't see it, I don't get it. I think it's when I watch my own stuff. But what I could say is like a big one for me, and it was really proud because I had a friend that passed away about 10 years ago from brain cancer, but him and I were big NWA fans. So when I got to referee my first NWA title match, that was a big one because my friends and that, people who are watching, we're all just like, I was trying to hold in those man tears. And I'm like, man, if only he could see me here. But I'm like, I know he's watching, right? Like it was for him. So, because that was a big one for us was the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. To us, that's our belt, right? Coming from that era. So when I got that match, it was like it was very emotional inside for me, and I think I cried afterwards because I was like, man, did it, and I'm glad that my friends got to see it too. So that one, it does top my list. Also, when the Motor City Machine Guns came back to Canada for the first time, I somehow by oh horrible luck for Brad, he was sick, and then the match got tossed to me, and I was like, whoa, what the really? And he goes, yeah. You like have fun. Luckily, my cardio was very on that day because it was for Destiny, and they were facing against Fighter Flight. So you can imagine
Oh,
how
wow.
fast that was going. So I'm literally doing crisscross everywhere. Just yep, tag. Yep. Oh, that was a tag. Yep, in there go. And I'm like, get out of the way, get out of the way, get out of the way. So that was a big one for me. And just repping some of the guys from the past. There was Rhino. It's funny. I thought rep these guys sometimes once or twice. A bunch of these guys like Rhino has been like 6 times. I was very fortunate as well for TNA, or like before Impact became TNA. I got to do their throwback '80s show. Just so happened I got lucky. I was there helping, and a spot opened, and I remember getting called over, and I was just like losing my mind because I wasn't expecting that. I thought maybe they'll give me a match or two. I got 4 or 5, and I was like, "Yo, this is wild, right?" Like I was nervous was an understatement, right? I learned a lot that day. I learned a very big difference between Canadian and American promotions and how they operate, specifically as well with television. So I got a big learning curve, learning TV that day with how on things need to be, which I'm very grateful for. I've lucked out as well with TNA a few times. They've done some of the outdoor house shows they did at the CNE grounds. Once again, by luck, and I got a phone call about if I was willing to do it. Of course, I was willing to do it. How am I going to say no? You know, so I mean, I was very lucky in those aspects. And I'm very grateful for those kinds of opportunities because I mean, that was a goal to just try and get something. It was funny with that Impact throwback show. Josh Matthews, he gave me a name out of nowhere because he couldn't say my name when he was saying it. He kept bubbling up my name, and then out came Ralph Johnson. And I thought, listening to that, I died because I'm laughing. I'm like, first off, couldn't say my name, but secondly, what a great '80s throwback name, Ralph Johnson. My friends popped when they listened to it. Even I popped. I was like, Ralph Johnson. So now I get razzed by a bunch of the guys. Hey, Ralph Johnson. I'm like, yeah, that's me. So that's kind of cool, right? It's like the unofficial official name, I guess, or whatever that I got when I was in when I did the TNA work or Impact work. So I've been very lucky. So all those matches were obviously those days were always in my mind as great. And the last one that stands out was while Joe Hendry was becoming the hottest thing in wrestling. He did his show at Destiny, and I lucked out and I got his match as well when that was going on. So, standing there trying not to go along with the crowd on his entrance, that was tough. That was one of those in your head, stare, straight forward, be a pro, and that was another one of those close moments there, trying not to fanboy out because, that would be pretty obvious, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Those are some of the things, I've got to work with so many great names, very fortunate because guys tell me, you caught on fast, you caught on quick. And I noticed that's when the bookings started very well increasing. I didn't see too much of my own improvement, but others did. And like I said, that confidence level is just it's good to hear and good to know. It's even though sometimes I don't kind of believe it because, people remember watching me at some of the indie shows and I'm just there and less like 5 years later, I'm like working these shows, doing this and that. And just, I don't know. I guess I got good and maybe I don't give myself credit. I'm not good at, tooting my own horn, although I will just come out and say it. Cause if I don't, then I guess, it may not come out ever. Who knows?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've had quite the career already. You've gotten to do some amazing things, but I have to
Yeah.
ask, is there any bucket list items that you still have, whether they just be performers that you would love to officiate, companies you'd love to work for, or even just like, destinations you'd like to travel for the purpose of working?
So my trouble is I got my own improvements that I need to do. I definitely do need to branch out. I need to branch out outside of Ontario. I know I'm very much based there, but I do need there's been opportunities, but it just timing was never on my side for some American bookings and other provinces as well. It just hasn't been able to work out with either a work schedule or anything else. So, and some of the other priorities, it does happen sometimes in life. I mean, that's one of them. I do need to branch out. I mean, passport ready, everything else. I do have CPR, and that's another thing I believe that all refs should have as well. We are first responders up, like first and foremost when things go wrong in the ring. So, I mean, I do have the credentials that do come along, that I would have to promote to myself to others out there. A bucket list company. I mean, I know what I've been told by other of the big companies up there. I know what a lot of their answers are or certain things because I am not a wrestler and a lot of times they aren't looking for refs in the most part. However, there are other opportunities where I know I could get those chances. The NWA, that would be a big one for me to do as well, and I'm trying to strive towards that if I can in some way, shape, or form. That's always a bucket list thing, just to get on one of the NWA shows potentially, and also any one of those NWA titles. Just got the World Heavyweight Championship down. I've been able to get some bucket list ones down, but there's other belts that they have that I would love to raise over my head. That in its own is a goal. I'm trying to hit 1,000 matches. I'm almost there. Small milestone goals, like I like making goals that are reachable as well. Yes, there's always the great ones that you want to put on the I may never, but if I would, that's it. And something again with TNA, like I said, that was another one that I didn't really expect. That was a goal making it there. So, I mean, a contract would be nice, and then there's also reality. I don't want to line myself up for too much disappointment. I mean, I'm 42 years old, and I know there's a lot of great people. I know there's a lot more deserving people than me that should be signed right now, and that they're the ones that need to be out there in the spotlight. So there's not too many more small list of goals, but they're not unreachable. at this point as well. So that's just some of them. I know I've got a probably a bigger list, but other than that, it's just like doing different matches, different match types. They're just I've done this match and this match, so I've got those kinds of goal lists. So I've got a few different ones for a career, for as a ref, and yeah.
Oftentimes, referees are not noticed in a match, and if they are, they're seldom praised for what they do. There are situations where people like to heckle or jeer the referees. What was your reaction to maybe the first time that happened, or how do you react when that happens, or how do you feel?
I love it when they hate me. It's not that they do like who likes referees in sports,
Nobody.
right? There's only like one or two cool refs in sports, right? There's that one dude in the NHL, and he does the big old like fighting, and you can't do that. Like that went viral. That one referee that's there in the NHL, right? So there's most refs are not generally well liked. So I think one of the first times that's happened, I was doing a show in Guelph, and when I came out, I believe someone looked at me because usually at the 365 shows, they usually have like one or two refs, and they usually got some kind of gimmick behind them. But I went there without a gimmick, and all I heard was, "Oh, this one's a real ref." And I was like, and I'm looking, I was like, "What's going on?" And then they booed me, and then started chanting for the refs that did have the gimmicks. And I was like, "Man, what is going on here?" Okay, I haven't even done anything. They haven't even seen me. I'm getting booed, and they're calling for they're calling for the other refs that have these gimmicks because that's the type of show they like. They like, the gimmick shows. And it's all right. I mean, my gimmick is I don't have any gimmicks. I'm just there to call the three. So I guess that works. And then there's been other times where I've worked with Brad Myers on shows, and we've got like the hockey chants that kids like to chant. I'm blind, I'm deaf, I wanna be the ref, and like had that happen several times, through shows but we always suck, right? Like
Yeah.
I think every show we probably hear, oh, this ref sucks, or you suck, or that was three. What are you doing? That was a slow count. Like we hear the same thing. It's white noise, unless if there's one guy who's really drunk.
Oh.
One guy got really drunk, walked over the rings, goes, that was like a three count. I said, do you know that was a two count? You could sit down now. And then they just kind of like, but they listened because, it's funny because they were drunk. So like the referee just told me to sit the hell down over there. So we did, and just came up and apologized after. I'm like, he's not mine. It's all good, right? That's why they're there. It is an unappreciative job sometimes because the crowd can be your worst enemy, especially if you try not to screw up, but they notice things, and sometimes they notice rules, and in matches you sometimes have to bend the rules, and because of, the young bucks and tag team wrestling, it's changed the game. So try and do a 5 count. Yeah, I'll bury myself is what I'm gonna. No, thank you. So there's ways around doing it without totally burying yourself. Only the supermarket fans, like they're the ones that call you out, but ultimately it's fine because you know what? It there's moments where you have to obviously do the job that needs to be doing when those happen, right? And then they get really set off once that happens. So it's like I say, we've always had those terms. A good ref can make a bad match look great, and a bad ref can make a great match look bad. So it is a true term. I've seen it. Heel ref stuff can really you learn about a match and a referee and its importance when you do a heel ref role and you find out how much it can kill a match, even though it's the story that's being told. But you then become the very visible third person, and I must say it's not enjoyable to do, and I've done it for only one promotion. It really is unenjoyable because really it isn't about us. I get that people sometimes want to involve us, but people aren't there to see us. They're there to see them, and that's where the focus, I believe, should be. So if a heel ref motion was to ever happen again, it would have to be with obvious good cause or reason. Like a lot of refs don't like doing it because we do take away from a match. Firmly believe that, if you aren't seen but seen when you're needed, that's the key part. And it is trying to figure out that system. That is what I believe makes a great ref. And it's just trying to figure out that formula of how you have to take, because everyone's different. We're all not the same kind of person in there, but we have to maintain the same rules, and we all have our own different ways, right? You just have to find your way and how to make it work so that way it doesn't take away from a match. At the same time, you make the other guys look good and yourself, right? And that's how you get noticed and booked.
That's amazing. And that actually covers what was going to be my last question was some advice to aspiring referees. Before we sign out, can you just let people know once again who you are and maybe where they can follow you on social media?
I am Ken Kensington. I can be found on Instagram at Kensington Counts 123. I'm Ken Kensington on Facebook, and I'm Kensington 82 on X, and that is with a Z, not an S, or you won't find me. Just to tell people, and also I can be seen on the new referee documentary, The Ref Didn't See It, that is now out for digital purchases at therefdidn'tseeit.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much. It's been great having me on here.
Thank you for tuning in to Independent Wrestling Profiles. Please help out the show if you can with a like, subscription, or review. We'll see you next time.